Today, we are talking about animals finding their feet when we move to Spain and our animals move to Spain with us. We kind of focus on ourselves and what our new life in Spain is going to look like. But today, we're going to give some consideration to our four-legged friends. And I've got Siobhan with me today, who's going to help me out on this topic because Siobhan is a qualified dog trainer, has moved over to Spain. So welcome, Siobhan.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
You're more than welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you move over? From where and to where?
Hi, I'm Siobhan, and I came over to Spain 4 years ago. I previously, back in the UK, lived in London, and I had a dog training business and daycare and walking company called Walkies. I also worked with Steve Mann, who is the owner of the Institute of Modern Dog Trainers. So I did all my training with him and then eventually went on to be an assessor with him. I am currently now here in Spain, continuing my dog training, and my business name is Karma Dogs Training and Boarding, and I work along the Costa del Sol and inland, and that's where I am at the moment.
Fabulous. Brilliant. Great. And today we're talking about some potential challenges that you might face with your dog, whether you're moving to the coast or the country. I've lived in both, so I know exactly what Siobhan's going to talk about today. So we're going to kick off with what happens when you move your dog over to the country. We think this is very idyllic. They can run around in acres on farmland, and what possibly could go wrong. So, Siobhan, what are the things that could potentially go wrong when you're moving to the country with your four-legged
Well,
friend?
absolutely. What could go wrong? So, exactly that for me. I came over here and we came to the house that we now live in. And one of the reasons we chose it was because I could open my gate and I could walk out, no lead, with my dogs and wander across the mountains of Andalusia. And it wasn't quite like that. So I have quite a bit of land because I have horses. So, and thankfully, I realised just how important it was, but thankfully my land was fenced completely. So that was a huge benefit because we had looked at properties that didn't have fencing and wasn't quite aware of the importance of it. So that was great. We had fencing, so our dogs were safe within their own environment. But when we went out, it was a different story.
Mm.
Um, we had rolling hills, and off we could go. And it's farming land, and on farming land there are your goats and your sheep, and it's quite lovely to see that they roam the hills with their animals, allow them to graze. It's lovely. But with them, they have their dogs, and they have two types of dog. A Mastin type dog who is there to guard them, and then they have their collies or crossbreeds where they herd them. Now, they are pretty good with humans. They're not that interested in humans. They don't feel any pressure from them. You walk past them, they're not interested. Have a dog with you is a completely different experience, and they obviously feel it's a threat. So your potential of your skipping through the wildflowers with your dog can become a little bit of a nightmare. You know, Mastins are big dogs, and I have experienced them standing on the roads blocking my pathway, and it's scary when you've got your little pooch and you're trying to protect them. That's the difficult part of going out and being in the countryside. You also have a lot of dogs that are on their land. So for me, I have a sprocker, a rescue sprocker who came over and is extremely fearful of dogs. So sometimes I look and I think, is she really enjoying this? Because we're out on our walks and she knows that she has to contend with fence barking dogs as she walks past them. So we are fortunate here that we don't have a lot of that, but there are places along our walk where she does have to incur that. So that was a big surprise for me when I came here, because obviously
Mm.
coming from London, where it's very built up, lots of people, parks full of dogs off lead, I was like, oh, I'm away from it, and I'm going to have calm, and I'm going to be able to walk out, and it wasn't quite that.
No, it's not. I've experienced it myself, and Mastins are there to protect the herd, right? That's their
Yeah,
job, is
it's
to
a job.
protect the herd from any predators, and
Yeah,
they can viciously defend the herd as
yeah,
well. Especially if your dog decides to run up and
yeah.
want to play or see what's going on over there with the herd, then those Mastins will protect to the death. So it can be very scary. I've encountered it myself. What advice can you give people that are looking to move to the country in Spain? They are going to come across this, like all farmers pretty much have these mastines, and we're talking the size of a small horse,
Yeah,
right? They're not
yeah,
small dogs, they're
no,
huge dogs. So
yeah.
what advice would you give people that are looking to move to the countryside in Spain, if they were on a nice, like you say, country walk and they experience coming into contact with one of these dogs?
Well, the first thing I would do a recce. So I would go out on my own and I would choose a walk, choose a place, and I would go and have a look and see what's out there, because there are places you can go. I go to beautiful places with um, Angel, but I have to drive to them. I can do a little walk um, here, but I need to get in the car and take her to the places that are beautiful and quiet, and you're not going to encounter sheep, goats, etc. So this is their land. That's how they work their land. So we have to accept that, and we want that. We want the views, we want all of that, and we want that openness. So that would be the first thing that I would do. I would also try to walk with somebody else. It's very difficult. With one dog, maybe you would be okay, but and typically when you come to Spain, you do normally end up with multiple dogs. Your family do grow when you're here. So I would have somebody with you, because one person can be pushing the mastines away while you get past. Now the thing is, mastines are nervous of humans, so they will not confront, or I have never experienced the mastines confronting me. And if I make myself big and I tell them to go away, they do at least stay where they are, and we can walk past. A situation happened to me the other day, and it was a young dog, and it did take off. It ran back. Now the farmers that also have great control of their animals, so if they are there, they will call their dogs and their dogs will come. So it's all about planning your walk, and they don't fence their fields. Their fields are open, but they do have a chain across their entrances, and that is telling you cannot come onto this land. So just be very careful with regard to where you walk. Is my first advice to anybody, and try to keep to the public places.
Sound advice, I think, there. Yes, definitely do a recce. Make sure, see what you're going to become in contact with when
Yeah,
you do your local walk. I mean, even before you buy your house or rent your house, do a
good
recce
idea.
because not
Yeah,
everybody's got massive gardens. And you think in the countryside, that's fine. I'll be
yeah.
out with my dog off leash, and you come down to the bottom of the road and you've got five Mastines waiting for you or whatever. So, have a look around before you even decide on the property, maybe just to make sure that you can actually walk around because like you say otherwise you are going to be putting your dog in the car driving it past all the other dogs that are on high alert just to get to a space where you can walk your dog without being worried about your dog being attacked by another dog. So okay, so that's a good, and there's lots of animals, isn't there, within the Spanish countryside? And like you say, it's beautiful to see them, but you have to be respectful of the animals and the farmers, of course. It's not all a public right of way, but like you say, very little is fenced off. So that's good advice, I think, with regards to country living and the animals that you could potentially encounter. On a side note, just also when you're looking at property, because I've been affected by this, you know, um see how many dogs are in your vicinity as
Yeah,
well. I lived in a place in Alarin, and all even though the dogs were all fenced in, until I moved in, I was unaware that each kind of farmer or plot of land, there was about four or five around me, they got about 10 dogs each. So the
yeah,
barking noise level was off the
yeah,
scale. You thought it
yeah.
was a quiet countryside. I could never have my windows open at all. So
No.
you have to be aware. The more houses that are around you in the countryside, the more chances that everybody's got dogs. The chances that once one starts barking, it's going to set the others off. And I was in a valley. So it was just like this echo of bark constantly.
I'd like to add to that actually, because you say about houses locally, close to you, but also go rooting and have a look, pull those bushes back and look the other side and see if there are little buildings. Find out what's in those little buildings, because it wouldn't be a surprise to see that there may be 5 or 6 dogs living in those buildings. So you may look around, and you're quite right, Natasha, that there's houses, and so I need to have they got any dogs? But sometimes there's not even houses. There's just a little building tucked away somewhere, and when you go looking, there's dogs there, so you will get that barking and that as well, and you think you're in the middle of nowhere.
They're hiding. They're hiding in the outhouses. You don't see them until you've moved all your furniture in and you've paid your rent or you've bought the property, and then you find out there's so many dogs living by you.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's country living. We can give that a tick.
right.
Now, coastal living. Do you want to explain a little bit about what you've observed with regards to people having animals on the coast?
So coastal living is it's very different. Uh, and I think country living is more stressful for the family members, the humans, because they're aware. But if you're protecting your dog, they have no idea about it. Whereas when you're down on the coast, there it's very busy, there's lots of traffic, there's lots of mopeds, there's a high volume of people, traffic, people having a wonderful time enjoying themselves. And I don't obviously know people's back gardens, but I think it's probably a smaller area of outdoor space that dogs will be living in. So what dogs need is calm and space and quietness. So that's going to be a challenge for them. Some dogs love it. Some dogs love that, and thrive with it and are really cool and laid back with it all and have no problems with it. But a lot of dogs do struggle with it. They do struggle, and our smaller dogs have even more because they're living in a world of giants. These cars are massive, these people are massive, and they're little dogs, and they are struggling just with things like that. Of course, it's great that you can walk them on the beach, etc., etc., but you then have, people, food, other dogs. So there's a lot for them to contend with. And especially moving over in the beginning, I think that it can be a shock for dogs. And I go down to the coast and sit, and I'm like obsessed with watching dogs. And unfortunately, I don't miss anything, and I wish sometimes I did. But so I see them, I see them living their daily life, and I can see that there is a heightened stress to how they're trying to cope with everything that's going on. And of course, when we first move over, everything is new. We are ourselves anxious. We're trying to find our feet, and then we have our dogs there that are like, where are we? What are we doing? What's going on here? And so it's just being really mindful of what they're struggling with.
Yeah. Yeah. Us finding our feet, animals finding their feet, it must be a big adjustment. And if you move to a very touristic area of Spain as well, where population swells dramatically in the summer months,
Yeah,
then that might freak the dogs out a bit if they're not used to that level of people on the streets or that level of noise and things like
yeah,
that. So, is
yeah,
there any top tips that you can give to people kind of settling in their animals if they decide to move to a popular city or a popular coastal resort that they can maybe do within the first few weeks just to get your four-legged friend settled in so they're not anxiety and stressed out as soon as they move over to
yeah,
Spain, because even getting them here is stressful. So once
yeah.
they're here, what do you advise?
So that is exactly it, Natasha. They are already stressed coming over, however that travel may have been. And so they need to decompress. Just like we do, our dogs are no different. They have the nervous system and they need to regulate themselves. So I would suggest for a substantial amount of time, you keep their world quite small. Um, we don't go, come on, let's take you to the beach, let's take you here, it's all wonderful. And I get it, we're excited, we've got this new life ahead of us, and it's wonderful. Well, it is wonderful, but your dog just needs a bit of time to catch up with you and just take it very slowly with them, very calm, keep it all quiet, keep it, as much routine for them in the beginning as you possibly can so they start to understand what's coming next. Because let's face it, we all fear things when we don't know what's coming next. So if we can I'm not saying that you get up at 8, you do this at 9, you do this at 10, but if there could be a routine to what they do when we first get here, and allow them to decompress. That's the biggest thing. And so very little happens. If they have a little garden, just that's enough to start with, and if you live in, apartments and you have a communal area, just quietly mooching. And the biggest thing that really helps decompress dogs is smelling. Okay, it's it really helps them regulate themselves. So do lots of smelly stuff with them. um, and allow them to go out. And if they want to sniff that tree for 20 minutes, or, you allow them to do that, because that's what they need. And what they're doing, you get your information from talking to your neighbours, from reading notices, from looking on Facebook. They get theirs from sniffing. So we need to let them do that. And that's how they gather all their information, is through sniffing and the area and just keeping it all quiet to start with.
So break them in gently then is a top tip, I think. Get them decompress first before you start to get excited and whisking them off here, there, and everywhere so that they have an opportunity to settle in and balance their nervous system for their new life in Spain. I think that's great advice there, Siobhan, for sure. Brilliant. Good. Well, thank you for sharing your wisdom with me today with regards to moving to animals in the countryside and indeed keep an eye on them when you move to anywhere busier. I think everybody needs to kind of take that on board. We're so worried about moving our furry friends with us, aren't we? That once they get here, we want to make sure that everything pans out nicely for them, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. We'd certainly do, and it can be. It's it's a wonderful place, and but all taken at a slow pace.
Fabulous. Wise words. Thank you for joining me today, Siobhan. Speak to you soon.
Thank you. Take care.